Of course, I listened to the Tucker Carlson interview, which I found very tedious. But I do appreciate Carlson's patience while Putin launched into yet another historical tirade, which turned out to be like most Russian novels of the 19th century. He went on and on and on, spewing irrelevant facts, wandering down historical side roads and quoting names of different sorts of people, some of whom had the same name, but you've lost track of them. And it went on and on to the extent that at one point Carlson, I think he might have been starting to fall asleep by then, had to ask Mr. Putin what century he'd got to. And I can imagine when Putin told him that he'd got to the 13th century, Tucker was mentally sort of thinking 13, 14, 15, trying to calculate how many more hundreds of years he would have to sit through before they got to the present. Well, you can relax. I'm going to air just a few observations, after which all of you are quite welcome to write comments under the video telling me that I forgot this or ignored that. And before you do, I'll come clean. Yup, guilty as charged. I am ignoring a lot because, the whole interview was 2 hours. There's no way I can deal with all of those 2 hours in anything under 5 hours. So this is just going to be a quick video about my general opinions. Caveat to this, I am on the side of Ukraine. I always have been, so obviously my opinions will be coloured somewhat by that opinion. Whatever. I'm Grannyopteryx. So, to start with, I did have some sympathy with Putin's complaints that different government departments in the American administration, the United States administration, for all you Canadians and South Americans who would complain about this, the United States administration, they were all doing things their political leaders or even other departments didn't know about. That sort of thing would be immensely confusing and frustrating, even dangerous. That sort of confusion would be bad enough if you've been brought up in a democratic tradition where you expect that sort of all pulling in different directions type of organisation. But I can see how someone in Putin's position would find that not only irksome and not only awkward in respect to making and planning future policies. I'm interrupting to remind you to click like and to subscribe and share. Also, I'm constantly being told that YouTube removes subscriptions. So please click the notification bell and check that you really are subscribed. All the links to my other channels are in the description, including links to donation sites. I'm always grateful, of course, for donations, but simply clicking like is the best thing you can do for this video and my channel generally. Thank you. It would be really infuriating, but still, that's not a cause for war, is it? Putin talked much about the pledge from NATO or different American administrations, United States administrations, that NATO wouldn't come any closer to Russian borders, but there was no written agreement, just various government officials saying mutually contradictory things. And irritating as that might be, some official making assurances over cocktails at a reception or even over coffee and an office desk, that isn't the same as a signed document. As Sam Goldwyn famously said, a verbal agreement isn't worth the paper it's written on, although he probably said that in a Brooklyn accent, which I have no intention of trying to replicate. Putin appears, or at least he feigns to appear, to have no concept of different officials saying different things, because those officials have autonomy and personal opinions. For sure, that is confusing, and you'd think they would have got their ducks in a row, but even so, whatever they said were, in general, so far as I've been able to make out, personal opinions, hopes, aspirations, but not iron rules, because they weren't actually written down, stamped and signed. Putin doesn't seem to be able to grasp the idea of individual autonomy, basically. In fact, the overwhelming impression I got from that interview was that Putin simply doesn't seem to grasp the idea that NATO is a group of aligned but independent countries. His model seems to be of NATO as a sort of Soviet bloc centrally ruled from Washington, and that really isn't how NATO works. Yeah, there might be pressure on countries to do certain things, but there is... American troops would not move into a country simply because it refused to toe the NATO line, which is what would happen in the Soviet bloc. And Putin doesn't seem to realise that, or at least he doesn't want to realise it. In this absolutist attitude to NATO, it doesn't seem to have occurred to him that if Russia had been free and open and peaceful, and allowed for individual expression and enterprise, then people would be only too happy to align with them. After all, Finland and Sweden joined NATO recently because they were afraid of Russian aggression. And that's how all the NATO members feel. They're in NATO because they're afraid of Russia. If no one was afraid of Russia, if everyone wanted to go to Russia to make their fortunes, to earn a living, to enjoy the history of Russian culture, NATO would have faded away. It was already fading before this Ukraine business woke them up. Oh, and by the way, apparently Poland started World War II because they wouldn't surrender quietly to the Germans, which is the rationale of every bully and wife-beater throughout history, ever. Oh, she, it wouldn't have got hurt if he hadn't fought back. Oh, and by the way, I really didn't like that smile. Reminded me of a crocodile. And that's all I have to say on the Tucker Carlson interview. I want to tell you, Tucker, if you ever see this video, you can get a lesson on Russian history much more cheaply just by going online and looking for some university department's lectures on Russian history. You don't need to take a team to Moscow. Okay, till next time. Why not treat yourself or a favoured relative or friend to these magnificent examples of merch? The mugs and t-shirts come in the Graniopteryx design or Grambo with a firearm or the more deadly knitting needles. Go to www.graniopteryx.com and whatever platform you're watching this on, please click like, subscribe and share.